watching us, this is Channel One Television. This is the Media Executives Breakfast, and it's coming to you live from the Coconut Grove Regency Hotel on ethical considerations and risks in programming for social media. We've had 3 speakers. The first, Samuel Apia Dankwa. Please put your hand up for Samuel. Samuel, please come back up. Thank you for coming back up. We also have Professor Robert Hinson. I don't know if he's left or he's coming back. He'll come back. Professor Robert Hinson, who spoke on the ethical challenges, navigating ethical issues, balancing free speech with responsible content creation. He will join us as well. Then, of course, is Ankoma, who has a way of simplifying the law in a way that not many people can. Ace, thank you for your presentation. If you can come back up. I want to introduce my discussant. Now, the reason I invited Dr. AEC is, you know, a lot of the things you people are talking about, we are the guys who actually go and practice it in our work. And we are essentially trained either in journalism institutions or communication outfits. Some of us learn on the job. But the truth is that there has to be a conversation around how media people are trained and the business of media. So Dr. EC's teaching and research are in the fields of media, of information literacy, and also of digital communication. So, Doc, please join us. Put your hands together for Dr. EC. Thank you very much. And so what I will do is, when you get the mic, I need a mic for her, please. This way. You are my discussant before the discussion. So I'll allow you to say a few things about what you've heard so far. And then I will have some specific questions for the panel members. But I really want the people we invited here to chime in. To introduce a few more people, we have Isaac Yeboah, who has been working online forever. Now he's at Graphic. Where is he? Isaac. Let's put hands together for Isaac. Yeah, he's one of the most experienced content managers we have in the country. I also want to acknowledge the head of Multi TV. I believe it's Abu. Did I get the name right? If it sounds like your name, just raise your hand. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your coming. We have the head of news at Channel One, Vivian Kailuk, also here with us. Thank you very much indeed. There are a few more names I'll introduce. So, JB, please bring a mic. All right. So, I'm going to start with Dr. AEC. You've heard Samuel Apia Dankwa talk about some ideas on programming, and then you had the ethical presentation by Hinson, and then Ace. What are your general thoughts on what you've heard so far? Anything that strikes you or anything that caught your attention before we come into the full discussion?
Thank you very much, and a lot of information in that altogether 30 minutes of presentations. I think that Samuel set a good context for us by just giving us a demographic, an overview of the dominant users of social media. And then the other 2 presentations then gave us the implications of the re-democratization of media because of the digital space that we are encountered with, right? Information is moving much faster. The volume of information that we have is exponential. So what it means is that, in fact, some scholars will say there's a challenge of the integrity of truth, right? Truth is under question, if you like. I'm just coming back from a media and development conference in Nigeria. And one of the key questions that panelists even kept asking was that, okay, so now who is a journalist? Because, and it's not as if those in the room didn't know or don't know who a journalist is, right? But citizens have, in one instance, become consumers and producers of information. The work that journalists are trained to do, now we have content creators, influencers, whatever the tag or category or name you want to put to it, are doing it, right? And while it's all well and good to think that people can distinguish truth from what is fabricated, that is not always the case. Our research is telling us that there's a big gap between information literacy levels, digital literacy levels, but also media literacy levels. And this is what I mean. People have mobile phones. They're able to open a Meta account, an X account, send an email. But when they are faced with, and particularly what we are seeing in this election cycle, City TV, for instance, I think we call it media card, right? News cards, that's the one, right? All over social media, you see a news card of a credible media house, right? But some political actors have taken the media card and have rewritten what they want on it. If you are not media and information literate, you will take it for what it is. And so it brings into question the credibility of what we have always known as truth. And then again, the other topic or idea about how fast or how quickly should we be releasing news, right? Again, journalism has always prioritized pushing news first, that idea of breaking news. But because of the ecosystem that we are finding ourselves in, truth, getting it right first, has become even more paramount. Yes, there are fact checkers who are within the ecosystem trying to make sure that the system is sanitized. But then, again, one of our presenters mentioned that we are living in a post-truth era. What that simply means is that although the truth is there, it is buried by an avalanche of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. The case of malinformation is such that the information is true, but then it is put in a false context. So maybe a scuffle that happened in Nigeria, because we are in Ghana, and perhaps it happened in a part of Nigeria where they are Hausa speaking. They bring that video, you see military men beating people, all right, they are speaking Hausa, etc., and we say, hey, it's Ghana, and then don't go and vote, all of that. And so it has made the journalism profession extremely difficult, so that it now requires a multi-stakeholder approach where policymakers, journalists themselves, in fact, all information stakeholders to come together to be able to work from different angles so that we find, I won't say solutions because that's a bit idealistic, but so that we are more progressive in the efforts that we are making to sanitize and make sure that the information that we are getting is credible. Thank you.
Wow, put your hands together for her. You've given me a lot of things, right? So you've distinguished between information literacy, digital literacy, and media literacy. Now, I think we need to be clear we are all on the same page here. Now, when we say somebody's information literate, what does it mean? How different is that from being media literate? And how different from being digitally literate? So let's do an example. I have a WhatsApp here, and they send me a video, the fake Trump video, saying something on Mahama. And I share it on my family platform. What illiteracy am I displaying by not checking it and spreading it? Is it information illiterate, digital illiterate, or media illiterate, or all three?
In fact, it's all three. So the literacy skills that you need to be able to evaluate, critically evaluate, assess, and use the media technology is a media and information literacy skill. The information, when we talk about information literacy, we are essentially talking about someone who, within a certain context, they know that they have a need for information and they know where to get the information that they need. Once they've gotten it, to be able to know how to use that information. So that's information literacy. Media literacy is much like digital literacy. However, digital literacy is a subset of media literacy, right? Media literacy talks about the various mediums within which information is shared. But when we talk about digital literacy, we are talking specifically about the literacy that is enabled through digital technologies. And so you will find that particularly our, let me say my parents, right? And aunties, like we said earlier, they are sharing information in good faith, only because they are not critical, they don't know. Right? And so in that instance, it is the media and information literacy skill that they don't have. They are digitally literate. They know that to share, I have to tap here and do this to forward. They know how to use the device. But beyond that, the critical, we call it a Socratic approach, right? That questioning eye, who produced this? For what reason did they produce it? What do they want me as the person who is reading or seeing it to to do with it? What does it profit them? How is this detrimental to me? So that every time that we are encountered with information, we approach it with that critical and questioning eye. It's the combination of these three skills that enable us to empower ourselves within this very fast evolving system we have.
Wonderful. I'm still laying the foundation. In journalism, we are told that media's job is to inform, educate, and possibly entertain. You're doing this in a context where the person you are seeking to inform is illiterate of essentially information, right? So they are more gullible because there's more falsehood. So the audience isn't as informed as they ought to be. Then you are also challenged by the speed of the digital platforms that is essentially making your news obsolete before it even comes out. All right? So the question then for the panel is, what does this mean for a Vivian Kailoko? You are head of news for radio and television. Twitter is breaking news in seconds. And sometimes they are using your news card that you have legitimately built over 10 years of credibility to spread false news. And the false news is moving fast. And the person reading the false news cannot discern whether it's false or true. And here you are with bills to pay, with you need readers and clicks. How does a head of news, what does this confusion mean for such a role? I think that's the central question for today, right? Because the environment is very, very volatile. The audience is very susceptible to being misinformed or malinformed. And yet the pressure on you is high, because if you are Larry Dogbe or you are Theo, you are not getting adverts too. So everybody's migrating digitally. This is very complicated, right? Do we have the right arrangement for Vivian or Theo or Larry to still do a credible job, ethical, legal, and still pay the bills? It's very difficult, right?
I think so, because paying the bills of a court action will wipe out your organization. Okay? That's one thing you have to know. Now, so if you want to play in that space, what I'll suggest is that have a dedicated social media outfit who can quickly cross-check. Sometimes it's just a phone call away, right? You've been told that an event has happened elsewhere, somewhere. You've seen the videos, but you're alert. You yourself must be alert to it. Often these have telltale signs of falsehood. You can see that the lips are moving, but the words are not from it. Recently, we showed one of a political party's van sitting there. But please, it takes half a brain to realize that, wait, there are cars moving, but you can't hear the sound of the cars moving. There are usually telltale signs. I'm not saying you will get it right all the time. We've all gotten it wrong sometimes. But sometimes the telltale signs are so obvious that you wonder how the person who posted it or the credible website that posted it didn't catch on. And this is something, I'm not saying because you're here, but if something comes out and they say City has said it, we all believe it. So we might see it bopping around. I'll ask people, do you know the news site you are getting this news from? You know, it is newsdaily.com. I said, wait, do you reach the end of, is it something News Daily? They say that this is a joke website. The things we say here are not true. But you will see people post it with confidence. Then you have to go. So sometimes it takes a little bit more due diligence from Vivian so that she doesn't make that mistake. Sometimes it's just a phone call. Sometimes calling somebody else in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes. Won't it be bigger news if the news is popping and then CTFM comes to say it's false? Because you did your checks and realize that it's false. So I guess you have to weigh the two. One, they need to come out quickly and do all the things you want to do because your competitors are getting the clicks and will obviously make them more adverts money. And also the fact that you need to protect that credibility. If you lose it, you're never going to get it back. If CTFM does this 3, 4, 5 times, you say, oh, City, don't mind them. Serious. And that you will never get it back.
Thank you. Sammy, in a sense, technology has made our work more perilous. But your presentation is suggesting that the solution may also be in technology. So I want you to elaborate on that, because you were trying to say that all these newfangled things that are causing confusion can actually be properly honed to verify. So elaborate on that.
That is exactly what I'm telling my clients now, that this election presents a unique challenge. And so, for example, if you notice fake news making the rounds on your news card, the most important thing for you to do is to have a dedicated section on your website, for example, that says maybe fake news alert. The moment you see it, you put out a disclaimer, say that this news is fake. Now, what's going to happen is, and if any media house will take that advice, is that the moment you see news that's sensational, people will quickly switch to, let's say, City FM, yes, to see if it's part of the fake news alert. Once it's there, that's it.
So the dedicated team, so which means that we have to dedicate somebody who's now looking around to see what evil people are doing.
That is the scraper idea I spoke about.
Explain
together with the ChatGPT API. Now, what a scraper does is basically it comes to your website and aggregates content. Mm-hmm. It goes to, let's say, Ghana Web. The moment Ghana Web puts out a story, it scrapes the site and picks the headline for you, and the content. So with the ChatGPT API, you can program it to say, if you find a story, check to see if other media houses are running the story. Does it sound fake? Do you find any discrepancies in the story? If you do, give me the probability that it's fake news. Then and only then would a news editor be engaged.
But that's for us in our work. But let's give you an example he gave. So somebody writes a story. Trump endorses Mahama and puts a ChannelOne news card and shares it.
Yes.
Now, our solution is that for every news card, we put a QR code on it, which takes you actively to a website with the story. Yeah. So the fake news guys have also mimicked this and put something like a QR code on the thing. Now, the problem I have is that 90% of Ghanaians don't know what the hell a QR code is.
Yes.
And those of them who even know what it is can't manipulate their phone to even get on it. So what am I supposed to do now?
I had to call Samens to teach me how to
check even me. Oh, Lord.
Samens is here. I said, Samad, this story is not from us. So when they use your news card, that's what I'm saying. It's a very good thing that will drive traffic to you. Fake news alert. Look, on social media, if something is fake, somebody will take it and stamp it with fake. And then starts going around. Sometimes even the fake is itself fake. right? Yeah. So you have to watch it. It's a very interesting game.
Yeah. Should our job, Doc, move now to making our audiences more literate? Because, for example, on the point of the QR code, Mauli and the team felt like this was a solution. And for those who are willing to know, it's easy to verify. Because if somebody fakes your story, there's no QR code, and if they fake a QR code, it doesn't take them to the destination. Yeah. So you eventually get there. Should we have to now spend our time saying, oh, by the way, this is an infomercial. If you want to scan our QR code, do this. So now our job moves away from writing stories to now teaching people how to discern. You know what I'm saying? Is that what we should be doing now?
Yes, should the media be the one doing it? Not necessarily. And that's why in my last submission, I said the challenge that we are encountering needs all stakeholders to be on board. Media and information literacy skill is something that we should have, I think, we should have mainstreamed into our education, at least from primary level by now, because we are advancing a digital policy. What that means is that more and more of us are being encouraged to be on there, right? And if we are not equipped, then we become even more vulnerable. Within this conversation that we have had, the missing link has been the non-literate population, right? There are people in Ghana who don't have the literacy, and I mean in terms of English speaking, right, to be able to discern and decipher these things that really comes really easily to those of us in this room. If we don't do it, it's because we can't be bothered. But there are others who really do not know how to. How do we then ensure that within this space that they are all supposed to be engaging, right? How do we ensure that they have the skill to be able to do so? Ace was speaking earlier about a video that doesn't match the conversation that is going on. Yeah. I find that particularly, and this one is not a dent on local language radio or media, but I find that increasingly, because we are watching soap operas that are dubbed and the lips are not syncing. Exactly. When we see the non-lip syncing, we are not critical of it. It no longer is a red flag for us. And so if we are watching an image and the lip is not syncing, okay, even my telenovela, the lip doesn't sync. Even worse, if the translation or the voiceover we are hearing is chi or ga or eve. Right? And so these are the things that make, in fact, a certain part of our population even more vulnerable. Unfortunately, they are the quote-unquote population. Right? And so unless we are very intentional about a media and information education drive, then we risk re-educating a certain level of the population. And the education and capacity building that I'm even signaling is not a one for all. It needs to be very contextualized, context-driven. We go into a particular place, we are able to assess that, okay, this is their level of access, this is their level of need. 2 years ago, we did a research that was looking at the media information literacy scale of students in Ghana. I was in some parts of Sunyani. It wasn't great. I was surprised by what the level of access that they had in terms of the technology, but also in terms of the internet. And the internet is where the action takes place. So if they can't get on the internet, if they are not able to get on, I mean, the disparities are great, are big, right? And so unless we are being targeted, even within that education and capacity building that we are talking about, our attempts will be very limited. But I don't think it's a media alone conversation. I think all the stakeholders within the ecosystem need to work together.
Prof. I haven't heard from you on the panel.
No, let me do a quick follow-on to her because of ecosystem and stakeholders. So I was telling your boss, the famous Sabalata Mensa, that as far back as 2017, I was with a company called Innover, CC Bruce's team, with Ken Ashigbe, we were at Kempinski talking about social media policy. So remember there was a full daily graphic advert that spoke about social media policy. So I found it instructive that the famous Ezankuma closed on social media policy as well, in terms of articulating what a blueprint should be for a media organization. So we know what the interconnectedness are, everybody is properly equipped. Because sometimes the social media trespass is not because you're a bad person, but because you don't know what you are doing. That's why you have some of the issues coming up. And on the issue of, is it Kumbaja or Kumchacha? Kumbaja. But by virtue of the consultancy I do, I'm aware of media organizations in Ghana and outside who are still about to spend hundreds of thousands of cedis and dollars to buy these foreign things with tree overruns and overrides. And it looks like the phenomenon, it won't go down. The more of those things you see, the more you hear Donald Trump also declaring victory from the U.S. for Ghanaian elections, because what they are saying doesn't match what he's saying, but it is what it is.
Wonderful. This is the Media Executive Breakfast. You can put your hands together for the panel. Brought to you by the Africa Media Bureau. And we're looking at basically ethical considerations and risk in programming for social media. I've gleaned two big so if I were a journalist writing a story on this, there are two big things I've gleaned. So I'm going to test that with George Sapong to see if my summary of the discussion so far makes sense. So the first big lesson I've gotten from the discussion and everything is that the news ecosystem has had to move from getting it first to getting it right first.
Absolutely.
Right? So the focus is not getting it first or putting it out first, but getting it right first. That's the first shift. Second idea is that digital makes our work environment more precarious.
Indeed.
But the solution is still in the digital space.
Indeed.
That's the second big idea which Samuel gave us. George, let me take your thoughts on those two and what this means for training the next generation of journalists.
Yes, sir.
Right? So that if you say you want to enter this profession, what does this mean? Then I'll come to the business model side as well, because a lot of guys here are managers as well. But please send George Sapon and Mike, JB. He is the executive secretary of the media. It's called what here?
National Media
National
Commission.
Media Coalition.
Yes, please.
Commission. He's a journalist turned lawyer. Okay. Is that a way to describe you? George Sapon is a big man. That's the most important thing. Speak for me.
Well, thank you very much. I honestly didn't think that I have to say anything because there's a lot of learning going on. But Bernard, if I could skip your difficult question, I would present my understanding of where we are this way. There's a certain evolution of society, okay, and technology. So when we think of these things, perhaps it would help us to appreciate that this is not only happening to us in media. Okay. Our entire life is moving into the realm of technology. Okay. So whether it's in the area of the law, medicine, engineering,
marketing,
health, whatever it is moving. So the proper conceptualization is for us to say, where is the shift going? And where are we? Okay. And what are the guardrails? Okay. And that is what I think the experts have really helped us. There is just one element in the discussions that if I had the chance, I would also show. Part of the problem why in Ghana and perhaps much of Africa, and specifically the United States of America, we are going to struggle with this question of disinformation is just because we are not conceptualizing the issues well. Okay. Two quick things and I close. When everywhere in Africa and also in the US, all of us are trying to deal with this problem by two main methods. Fact-checking, media and information literacy, and put all the literacies together. If you think about it very closely, you would notice something. When we talk of communication, let's go back down to basics. We say the information moving from a source through a channel to a receiver. Correct. When we talk about fact-checking, we are essentially addressing the source issues. Who produced this? What's the credibility of the source? What's the authenticity of the material? That is what we are doing. When we say we are doing media and information literacy, we are providing capacities and skills to the consumer to be able to evaluate the material that they are consuming. In between, we are left with the channel. And this is where the problem is. So a lot of the challenges that the experts have raised, whether we are talking about algorithms that you raise, the deep fakes and all the bots, and they are all happening within the channel. Okay, this is where the problem is. In Europe, that is why they passed the Digital Services Act, because they recognize that they've got to address that. Channel. Yes. Yeah. In the international multilateral forums now, UNESCO just developed the guidelines on the governance of digital platforms. In the United States of America, the reason why I say they are going to have a bigger problem is that Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act creates a safe harbor that grants almost complete immunity to the platforms. Indeed. Okay. Indeed. Last year, I think that we had raised this earlier, if that fell down to the content, the U.S. Supreme Court had an opportunity to address this question in two seminal cases. Twitter and Tammany, and then Google and Gonzalez. Somehow the court skirted around that issue and didn't address it. As we sit, there are as many as 56 proposals before Congress seeking to address the channel issue through legislation. But we know that won't happen in the next 4 years because of Elon Musk. You understand? So coming back to Africa, why are we here? We are here because of this concept of the epistemic fallibility. The whole notion that African governments are dangerous and that if you allow them to enter the space of regulation, they will use the laws to do the wrong things. That is why I think we've gotten to that point where media, civil society, public intellectuals need to lead that reflection. The whole technology of our lives is moving. Our whole life is moving. Just as we had rules for our daily lives, so should we construct the rules that we should live with in our digital life. If we don't conceptualize the problem that way, it seems to me that we will keep skating.
But can we
Thank you.
Can we leave the conceptualization of those rules just to the government?
No. Government should be the last person to enter the space, in my view. Precisely because of the point that I've made. ACC, and I'm sorry that I've told him a number of times, look at how long it took for the Auditor General to notice that he has power within the Constitution to do something. Okay? And for those who took up that charge to do that, ask them the personal cost to themselves. I think they are overhardened, and that is why they keep on. I don't think that the state by itself should be allowed to reconstruct our lives the way it has done in the past. It seems to me all of us need to get into that space and construct that life together, because we constitute the state.
So we in this room could be setting the stage for some of the rules around governing our digital lives, which is why this platform is important, so that industry players, the editors, the NMC, the GIBA, and all these people can have an industrial approach. But I thank you for you made it very easy because of the basic explanation. And I think for those of you following online as well. So basically, communication from source through channel to end user. Fact-checking deals with the source. Media literacy, digital literacy deals with the receiver. But the regulation of the channel is the problem. And the other question is that the channel is no longer City or Joy or Graphic. It's now Twitter, it's now Instagram, it's now TikTok. And so it's much bigger. And because of the strength of those organizations, of course, they are linked to the US, which is why the US example comes in nicely. I want to acknowledge a few more people. Kent Mensah, he's been editing websites for many, many years. His hair is just going backwards. It's not coming forward. Kent, it's good to see you. Maximus Ametogo, who's a digital, I don't know, whatever, digital Maradona. His company is called Pop Out.
But his hair is there.
His hair doesn't go. Yeah. And a few more people. So I still want to open the floor for some thoughts. Isaac, if you have anything to share as well, I would like to hear from you. Because you've worked in this space for over 20 years, all right? And you're listening to us talk about how it's become more precarious and dangerous. JB, bring the mic to this gentleman. He doesn't talk much, but he's been in the industry for almost 20 years. What do you think? Can your industry survive the next 10 years, looking at all that's going on? The pressure of getting the news first. You are now with Graphic Online, and you are
back to Major Online.
You are back to Major. Hey, Charlie.
You've gone back.
You mean you go in, out, in?
He has returned.
Welcome. So just talk to me. Oh Lord, forgive me. Talk to me. I just want to hear your thoughts on this.
Will we survive? I think so. We'll survive, and I agree with Sammy when he talks about the same technologies are the solutions. Okay. Of course, I mean, we all agree that now news that would have taken you 3 or 4 days to get to know about comes to you in seconds. Mm-hmm. You get me? So that is a positive one for us. Of course, if you're on the website, you also talk about bounce rate. Mm-hmm. How long are people going to stay on your pages and not just quickly run away because they read the news elsewhere? So speed will remain a factor of what we do, and it's very important that we get it right. I have argued elsewhere that we are in a country where we don't sue much. People don't sue us enough because the little threat you post to a platform, you see the news vanish. Why should it happen? It means that we failed to do something first, whether fact-checking or cross-checking, whatever. These are basic. Now fact-checking has become a product of a media product. These are things you are taught +1 journalism, that you don't publish without cross-checking what it is that you are. Now politicians are also self-publishing what they do. they bring them to us all the time. What do we do with it? Do we throw it away or we publish? How do we, all that we have listened to in this room, is it the truth? I mean, ACE give us case studies, some of the dangers that we face. Can I sit here and say that these are the truth? So what I teach and what I talk to my colleagues about is focus on facts. Prof was talking about, he said the truth is under question. It has always been under question. Journalists, do we publish the truth or we publish the facts? It is always going to be difficult if you say you are going to defend publishing truth. That is why I ask all that we have heard in this room, do they represent the truth or their facts? I've heard everybody speak, so I can report, this man said this man said this man said this. If it requires that I go out and verify what I have heard, I'm doing the right. But if I'm taking this out and telling people that this is the truth, then I have questions to answer. If I see you holding a bleeding head, better, can I say that you have killed somebody? I dare not say that. You are holding a severed head. All I have seen is that you are holding a head that is bleeding. That is all I can go out to the public with. I cannot say that you have
What
killed.
kind of example is this?
That is an extreme example. Like a horror movie.
Bernard, can I say that you have killed?
No, you can't
I
say that.
cannot. I can only say that I saw Bernard holding a bleeding head or a severed head, and that is fact for me. So yes, if we stay with
the facts.
the ethics, why not? The tools are there, the technology that we are talking about are there to enhance the job that we do. And I think that if we apply them properly, we know that it's not everybody who is a journalist. We are calling ourselves professionals. Let us remain professionals.
Wow.
If you want to stay in the
But
job.
please, I know I'm not moderator, but there's something you said. I talk about truth.
Yes.
Don't you think social media is also breeding a new type of journalistic laziness? What I'm saying is that verifying is tough, it's hard, it's long. So if you can just steal, like Ace was saying, a bit of this, a bit of that, and put it out, isn't it easier than going to verify and becoming tired? I'm just asking.
And that is why I say that we don't sue enough.
I was going to speak to that.
We don't sue enough. Because, I mean, if you are saying you are a professional, then be the professional. You cannot behave like the street person who would believe anything or publish anything. And then the job we do is such a great job that we are informing sometimes millions of people. And you don't know what someone's reaction to what you have published is going to be. All right.
I agree. I just want to say something short before that. When you say that fact-checking is basic,
It's basic.
and therefore now that we've had like a fact-checking industry, it's almost surprising. The only thing I'll say is that disinformation is new. So in the past, we're dealing with misinformation. You get it? So if you do your verification, you put a story out. But if somebody deliberately concocts a story and hides it, the science of telling whether a video is fake, it may take a bit more work to do. So whilst I'm not saying people should not do the basics of verification, I think there's a need for the skill of fact-checking, because now people are malinforming. They pick a video, they put it out of context. So in addition to the basics you do to report, and some of this is not, fact-checking is not just for what you report. You're also fact-checking trending stories. So they'll put something out which is now mainstream. So even if it's not your story, because it's a story, you have to fact-check it. Do you follow my point? So it's not like because we've abandoned our basics, therefore we've created a fact-checking industry. Dangerous, desperate times require desperate measures, which is why I think fact-checking as an industry is legitimate. Because now where we are, if somebody is deliberately faking my news card, I have to find a way to deal with that.
And Bernard, if I may.
Okay, Flo, yes. Give him a mic, George, and I'll come to the panel. You get off time, so.
Sorry to come back. There are two quick things.
Yeah.
Number one, disinformation is not new.
Okay.
It's only because it's just more widespread and easy to produce and distribute. Indeed, in its earlier form, it existed in war propaganda.
Okay.
Okay? So deliberate distortion of material to deceive the enemy has always been part of it. except that it lived in a specialized world. Now it's massified, easy to distribute. I'm just adding to your fact-checking issue so that it doesn't become a long debate.
Yes, sir.
As I argued, because the problem emanates from 3 points, the only way you can address it is to have a whole of process approach. So you can't take out fact-checking and go and deal with the channel and the receiver.
Okay.
You still have a gap.
Yes.
And you can't, so in thinking about it, think of it in terms of the entire chain. Otherwise, you won't have your hands on it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Charles Mensah. Panel, just hold your horses. Yes.
Good afternoon, Bernard. Thank you very much. I think the key point for me, it's where the revenues are going. Look, Bernard, you could be doing a lot of things early morning on social media. I mean, your radio show go on social media. Look at the number of eyes who will be plugging in. Maybe 100, maybe 200. Then you look at some rubbish that will be running by some other person, 13,000, 14,000. That's where the money goes.
Absolutely.
And it creates a major problem because when you measure the content for the media houses on social media and the number of followers that they have, and you measure what they are churning out and what you are churning out, we have a major problem.
Absolutely.
And they have advertisement. Every morning, they have it. You don't have. And that's where the major problem starts from. And I think that's high time. You are here, you are there. You used to be at what? Advertising Association Chief Executive? Oh dear, okay. All right. But if you can push the association, for instance, don't put your money here. Because the more you sponsor them, the more they create mayhem for us in the system. Now everywhere that we go, kids fight early morning, it's on social media. People pass commentary on it. Some persons who are in the UK, they don't have jobs, pass commentaries on things that are happening here. And they pass my comments and you think that they have the following and they start insulting each other. Where are we going? So because the revenue is there. And our problem is the revenue. Content, we can always adjust to the content. But when you adjust to the content, you subject it to all the processes, you don't get any money coming to you. Trust me. I used to do program on social media, financial literacy, for the last 9 years. And it was called Nkutebokrachi. Free. Guess what? The highest I've ever got was 1,000.
You didn't insult anybody?
No. I teach free, financial, free on social media. The highest I've ever got was 1,000. But guess what? If I was criticizing financial systems for government and all those things, I would have had 30,000.
Yes.
I didn't get any sponsorship. So I didn't get any sponsorship. I'll go and beg my colleagues in the banking industry, oh, please sponsor me. So you don't have the numbers. And it's a pain. So how do we match that? Because the revenue drives these things. Thank you very much.
That is the question for the panel.
I was going to ask him, it's a marketing game. So if the numbers give you the traffic and the traffic gives you the traction gives you the bottom line, then I don't have an answer. She is in Department of Communication.
It says that the lawsuit to wipe out the bottom line.
To this thing about that we don't sue enough. If we talk a lot, but often we don't carry through the matter to the end.
That's true.
If someone does something wrong, we think that the arrest is the punishment. Oh, yeah, channel. That's the end of the story. Was he put before court? Was he tried? Was he sentenced? Did he face jail time? We don't follow through. Yeah, channel. That's it.
Yeah.
He could have been released the next day.
Yeah, very
and that's the end of the story.
Absolutely.
That's part of it. We don't sue enough. I agree, but some of your more established websites do what I call the deliberate recycle. Now, last week, and this is me, a station I speak on and I think are my friends, I saw on Twitter, they had posted a story blasting the Chief Justice. And somebody with a name that is clearly not a human name then comes to say, yes, we know that is how people like Isan Kuman live.
Oh.
They pay judges to get judgments. Oh. And this reputable website had retweeted it. Oh. So I took a screenshot and sent it to the owner of the station. But this is the problem. We don't sue enough because the begging is too much.
We beg everyone.
They know how to go to your pastor and your chief.
Exactly.
And they
We
come
went
and
to the
beg
same secondary
and
school.
beg and beg. And I wonder, the person who retweeted, does the person lose his job? No. If the person gets a query,
He's probably an
who
intern.
knows? Right? Who cares? Now, this is part of the begging. And two, you go to court, you get the judgment, only to realize that loud-mouthed person is some impecunious man of straw. He has nothing. Right? And you wonder, so you got a judgment, and you wonder what to do with it. The guy has nothing, but he can really insult. That is his only talent. That's his only gift. All right? I have some, and so they deliberately set you up, and they may not defame you. I see this. So-called respectable men and women, they'll put up a post about you, and then knowing that their followers will come and insult you, and they keep it there. They might come and comment, or they add, oh Charlie, but they leave it there. So no, we see these all the times. I have some controversial suggestions that I've never made. Today I'll make it.
Make it.
I think that the law on defamation, particularly coming from news organizations, should allow us to go after shareholders and directors of media organizations. Yes. It's just me thinking, I'm not the law. Shareholders. You see, ultimately, who are the ones making the money from us being insulted? Who are the persons in charge of directing and administering the affairs of the company? So can they just sit and say, we are immune, we will make our dividends every year while you are insulted? So they are the shareholders are the direct beneficiaries of the media organizations.
Lifting the veil of incorporation.
We want the incorporation. If you ask me, the law on defamation, particularly coming from, and all of these things, no, there's one news site in Ghana. When you sue them, you don't know where to find them. They are very, very popular. They say their office is in the Netherlands. Me, as I say, I can chase you like a demon. We chased, found the office in. So every time you have to serve them, you have to do service to some address in the Netherlands. There's nobody there. You find an office in Accra. It's not branded. When you go, you say it is not us. But you know that is where the news come from. And it's just a news aggregator. Now, you see, when you do these things, you let people think, maybe one of these days we should test it. That the shareholder is the direct beneficiary of that. I can show that the insult triggered 1 million hits, and they must have made money from it, right? But so that we don't sue enough.
Fair
because
enough.
You guys beg too much.
Ace, thank you very much. You've said a lot about the sticks. The question that the gentleman asked also has to do with some carrots, right?
Yeah.
He's basically saying, if you don't sensationalize and you don't hyperbolize, you don't get views, you don't get likes. Is there something to be said about how to navigate that? All right, because Sammy, you've helped a lot of websites. In the long run, does truth pay? Does credibility pay in the long run? Because he's saying, yes, people are moving quickly. If we do it for 10 years and we are credible, will it pay the bills?
To be honest, I've heard the solutions people are preparing, and I think that we are not seeing something. We are not looking at. Yes, the truth is important, and journalists have the opportunity to actually now make money off the truth. Let me explain something. I'll use Twitter as an example, or now X. You'd realize that Facebook was censoring, and our big man mentioned the channel, source channel, and then the end user. And you would realize that every time there was an issue, like the Cambridge Analytica issue, they tackled Facebook, the channel. And then Facebook decided that, okay, let's self-censor some of our stuff. They took Donald Trump off, etc. What did Twitter do? They put him back. They allowed him the platform. Now, those who you would consider the end users became the source of misinformation and disinformation. Now you have so many multiple sources, one channel, and the channel says that I am not interested in censoring content. What are you going to do? What does the future hold for issues like that? What I'm saying is that when they are running with stories like that, run with the truth and overtake them with the truth. And once you do that, for example, if every minute one news organization puts out a story saying that President Mahama has done this or Vice President Baumia has done this, within a minute or two, that's why I focused on the scraper and the ChatGPT API. Within a minute or two, City Newsroom puts out a story saying that yes, it's not true. Fake news alert. This story.
So eventually, we'll get more clicks.
You sure? No, you see, I was listening to most of the suggestions that were being posted. For example, the issue with the QR code to verify. Now, supposing even people could take the trouble to actually check, what's going to happen is that if I were the one putting out the fake images, I wouldn't let it point to any story. I'll point it to an affiliate program I'm running, so that every time you take the trouble to actually try to verify, I make money. You understand? So yeah, so I look at the solutions and I'm like, if X or Twitter are taking the same approach in solving issues of disinformation and trying to stop people at the source, etc., they wouldn't have made the money they are making. And once the issue of money came into the picture, you know, Apple and the likes all left X or Twitter when Elon Musk took over. Now they are all back because that's where the numbers are. When you go to Facebook and you're not getting the story, where do you go to? You go to Twitter. The only reason some people go to City Newsroom is not because you break the story first, but because they want to be sure if the story is true. If City has possibly mentioned the story, then it must be true. In my case, sometimes I see a story on Twitter and I'm like, nah, this sounds a bit fake. Let me go to City Newsroom if they have published the story. And if it's there, then it must be true.
Let me take Professor Hinz. Thank you for that. Professor Hinz's take on this, because you also use the word echo chamber. Now, people are consuming media that reinforces what they believe. So people actually don't want the truth. This is my view. Like there's a growing, okay, I won't say, let me not generalize. There are people who want the truth or facts, using your word. But there are a growing group of people who only listen to what reinforces their preconceived belief. And it's a large industry.
It is.
Okay, so how are you going to stay in this middle of trying to say, let's be truthful, when those who are basically reinforcing people's biases are happily making money and creating new presidents?
Good, interesting point. Okay, so I think when all is said and done, enduring brands are built on truth. That's a philosophy I've carried for the last 20, 30 years. Yesterday, for instance, the University of Johannesburg was ranked #1 in Africa again. I mean, there's a university that's first in every social media ranking. They get the social media issues. And there's a university that will be 20 years next year in a city that has a competitor called Wits that's over 100 years old. But when you enter Joburg today, it's as if the university has taken over the whole Joburg, because they know something about building an enduring brand, using approaches that are useful, and it's creating for them a certain brand that's becoming very enduring and useful. What's the point I'm making? You can't fight the naysayers and those who spin and those who tell lies. But I think if you're a media organization that would persist for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you are doing 1.7 million followers on Twitter today as a city brand. It's not a bad following. You can build it to 2, 3, or 4 million by staying what you're doing, and the brand proposition will speak for itself. People will still come and place adverts with you if they want to be associated with brands that carry a certain brand persona. So I think you shouldn't run to compete with what's negative just so that you can be relevant. I think you should stay with your brand message. I'm not all is said and done.
Wonderful.
You'll still do well.
Dr. EC, I'm giving you your last word. So we are closing now. Your closing thoughts. And I'll summarize what we heard.
Okay, so in closing, perhaps because we are also in the season of 16 days of activism for violence against women, I'd like to say that the digital space as well opens up numerous challenges for women. There's a report from UNESCO and the International Center for Journalists. And for those of us who are journalists in this room, I would like you to have a look at that report. It's called The Chilling, the Global Online Violence Against Women. It was conducted across over 185 countries with some 200 women. And what that tells us is that women disproportionately suffer online violence. in terms of harassment, abuse, doxing, etc., etc. So that as we ponder the ways in which digital media has shaped the way we are doing our news, etc., etc., these are the other angles, equally important angles that we should be looking at. Ghana has a Cybersecurity Act, and Ace talked about it. The Act 1038 talks about issues from around child sextortion, etc., etc. Women, again, suffer disproportionately from these issues, so that when we are reporting, it's important that we consider these issues so that they are reflected and amplified. It is only in doing that that we make the media space more equitable and inclusive for us all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Put your hands together for Dr. EC. And we've been listening to panel members on the issue of ethical considerations and risks in social media programming as we approach elections. We've been hearing from Samuel Appiah Dankwa, who is, what is he? Technology, something. But essentially, he runs this organization that has worked over 20 years in the digital media space, and he provides service for a lot of media houses. Esa Nkuma, a lawyer, private, Dr. Aurelia Yisi from the School of Communications, University of Ghana, and we had Professor Robert Hinson, who is for now with the Ghana Technology University College. Thank you very much. Please take your seats as I bring the program to a quick close. And in doing so, I want to summarize about 6 big ideas I've heard from the panel, and then hopefully we can make some progress. So basically, journalists must stick to facts because truth is elusive. That's Isaac Yeboah's contribution. Samuel Appiah Dankwa says, even though technology has made our work more dangerous, technology could be the way of solving the problem. So look in the problem for the solution. So that's the second big idea. Third big idea is from Dr. EC. We must transition from getting it first to getting it right first. I think that's very profound. George Sapong gave us a nice framework for analyzing these issues. Fact-checking is great, but it deals with source issues. Media, digital, information trust is fantastic. It deals with the end user. The missing middle is policy to regulate the channel or the medium. And he says we cannot outsource that to government. We have to, as an industry, co-create that policy framework, which is why AMB has organized this. So in essence, we are starting a process of creating a right policy environment for digital literacy. Esa Nkuma has some very interesting suggestions, of which the most profound was that we must consider lifting the veil. It's not a veil of incorporation, but basically we should allow directors and shareholders to be liable in suits, and he will probably test that. I know he will try and test it one day in court, because a lot of the people who have nuisance value in insulting generally happen to be people who don't have any money. So you either give them money so they stop misbehaving, or you sue those who make money from what they do. But that was a wonderful one from Ace. So the law of defamation must allow us to sue shareholders and directors. And then 2 final points, which I think for me are most profound. Samuel again says, profit from the truth when people tell lies. And then Professor Hinson ends by telling us that enduring brands are built on truth. I think that's fantastic. So for a 1-hour program, I've harvested 9 key lessons, and I think the panel deserves a round of applause. Thank you very much. Now, in the spirit of co-creating the digital environment, the Africa Media Bureau wants to thank all of you for being here, particularly busy editors and online managers, for your presence and your participation. We want to keep this group working, so there will be another program in the first quarter of next year where we would invite you to see how we can take these discussions forward, in addition to other things that the Africa Media Bureau does. I want to say a big thank you to the media partners who supported us, of course, ChannelOne and City, for your support for this initial program. Special thanks to the National Media Commission's Executive Secretary, who came in his personal capacity, whose people also advertised their Media Watch app, which is a very important tool to help you stay informed and involved for transparent election coverage. The Media Commission say you can download the Ghana Media Watch app on the App Store, the Google Play Store, and you can submit videos, audios, and images that are time-stamped and geotagged, capturing accurate information on incidents across the country. It's part of their contribution to help with a credible election in this volatile environment, to protect journalists, to fight disinformation, and uphold the integrity of our elections. And they are partnered by the GJA, whose president was here but had to leave to a press conference. The GIBA, whose president was also here, had to go for the same press conference. The PRIMPAC and the Ghana Police Service. Last of all, I want to thank all of you for being part of this very important program. And to the team from ChannelOne, we cross over back to the studio for mainstream programming, and the guys at the back for help fast, but we cannot guarantee lunch. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. At least you can take a group photograph, even though there will be no lunch.